Welcome to episode 170 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the greatest day in motorsports 4 edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. I'm your under the weather host, Philip Matthew, and I'm here with the former iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman, and a scholar, and somebody who also raced at North Wilkesboro this past weekend, albeit on iRacing, because he's really good at that. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, you mentioned the Indy 500 on iRacing. Of course, not a thing anymore, but it's been 1 year now officially. So, of course, a lot of fun memories from that. But yeah, of course, a lot of fun racing this past weekend. North Wilkesboro, Indy 500 qualifying, big speed there. We'll get into it, of course. And I ran North Wilkesboro virtually, so we'll get into that later too. But yeah, I mean, good to be back here for this week. Of course, I'm not under the weather like you, but it is raining outside here in Central Florida. So yeah, very uh, either feeling under the weather for you or under the weather outside. But hey, good to be inside right now. So.
I agree on that one. Let's see. I'm gonna do clearing the throat like Baba Booey. Um, we'll get into the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, first race at Wilkesboro since 1996, which saw Kyle Larson uh, take the lead, I think, at lap 55 and never look back. Um, he was one of a few people who took tires on a lap 18 caution with O. Richard, and he ended up going and utilizing that coming from tailback, as Rusty Walsh would say, and he did say last night on the radio to win the race. So we'll talk about yet another win for Kyle Larson around his cousins and brothers and sisters and other kinfolk. Uh, talk about other key players, including one guy who definitely was getting some definite hatred, who finished second in that race and is priming him, been primed after the last few weeks for a win. And it might be a good place for him to get a win this coming weekend at Charlotte. We'll get into the Open, which was had a bit of argy bargy, as Calvin Fish would say. But there was, 3 drivers that got in through that race, and to be fair, not really shocking who got through, based on the field. The Indianapolis 500 saw Alex Palou qualify on pole and, set a new, what do you call, pole sitting 4-lap record, and I think the fastest first lap or fastest lap for a pole sitter ever at the Indianapolis 500 and over 235 miles an hour. Um, front row with him and Pato Award and what do you call Renus VK or Renus VK and Pato Award. So that was an interesting front row. Plenty of storylines throughout the field. The drama at the front was only beat by the drama at the back, which involved Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing, and 30 years since Bobby Rahal failed to qualify for the Indianapolis 500 as the defending IndyCar champion. His son, Graham Rahal, gets knocked out with no chance to respond in the knockout session, the last row shootout, and is going home. So yet another famous name, Marco Andretti, almost had that happen to him. There, he ended up sending Ryan Hunter-Ray home, but I think it worked out well for Ryan Hunter-Ray long term. We'll see how it does for Green, but we'll get into all the qualifying. There were incidents. There was one major incident today in the final regular practice before Carb Day on Friday. Uh, we'll get into all of that, and we'll go in and later on make our picks and preview the race in more detail. Imola, Paz Parmigiano Reggiano Grand Prix was canceled because Imola was underwater. Unfortunately, they've had horrendous flooding and heavy rains, and the amount of manpower they needed to get, all the streets open again and all the things for the citizens of that region. There was no way they were going to hold a Formula One race there, and basically they probably aren't going to be able to do the race this year. So I guess for people who love Max Verstappen, that's one less win that Nick will have this year. Um, the roundup this week will be short and sweet. F1 Academy was at Barcelona this past weekend. Supercars was at Simmons Plains. The NHRA was at Route 66 Raceway. All four major pro categories, and then we'll do preview of F2 and F3. Um, I can remove that part at F2 at Monaco. So before we make our previews for the Monaco Grand Prix, and make our picks, which we all know what those picks are going to be. Um, then the triple header at Charlotte this weekend, trucks on Friday, Xfinity on Saturday, and the Coca Cola 600 on Sunday evening. Um, and then the last thing we'll go over, of course, is the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500, the 107th running of this great race, and very intriguing field and opportunities for so many to possibly get their face on the Borg Warner Trophy come Sunday after or come this weekend. Um, Josh will talk about his exploits at Wilkesboro and elsewhere in on iRacing and in other gaming in the sim segment, and then we'll call it a day for this week. And then next week we'll have all the fun of recapping it on Memorial Day, while we go and um, thank those who served us and paid the ultimate price for our freedoms to be here at this time in this great country. Um, for somebody who God loves freedom and is happy he's gotten an opportunity in this great country, his name is Kyle Larson. Uh, for a guy who went hard R, his life has gotten a lot better since he did it. Um, He went out there yesterday at North Wilkesboro, and if it weren't for a speeding penalty on the lap 18 pit stop that sent him tailback, he would have done the same thing Jeff Bodine did back in 1994 at North Wilkesboro, which was the last instance of this, the last time a winner had lapped the entire field. Kyle Larson's car was on a different planet. I figured it had traction control, but they're never gonna find it. Or there was something else going on because he had more traction than the rest of the field combined. Uh, and it was a woodshed whipping. No credit to the guy. He took over at lap 56 and never looked back. The two other cars that came in with him during that lap 18 pit stop, uh, Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick, the 2311 guys, finished second and third. Chase Briscoe had the fastest car late in the race, finished fourth. Uh, was really hoping for a caution there, just so then real, nonsense could start. But unfortunately, when a Hendrick car leads, they don't throw the caution. So uh, I mean, there really wasn't a whole heck of a lot to take away from this deal other than, I mean, we'll get into Keebler Gibbs, got into it with Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell, as per usual, failed at trying to get back at him, but then that's become a common theme with Keebler, where people try to retaliate against that midget and they all fail. He advanced to the All-Star race along with Josh Berry in the 48, which then gave Bullcut Moron an in to make the All-Star race. So before he was going to be able to go and have his um, circle jerk later in the night at North Wilkesboro, he got to go and race or act like he was racing in the All-Star race and finish next to last, which makes a lot of sense because he's been god awful. Um, yeah, Suarez started on pole. Great pit stop by his Trackhouse team earlier in the weekend to get him the pole. He won his heat, so he held the pole position, led the first 55 laps, but really, Josh, it was a Larson benefit. He's now a three-time winner of the All-Star race, and he's won it at three different racetracks, which is pretty unique for the man they call Young Money.
Yeah, no, I mean, Larson thoroughly dominated, after initially starting in the back, was nowhere to be found during the All Star Open the previous night. Of course, different set of tires in that race, and they were running in rain tires. So rain tires returning to North Wilkesboro, very unique combination there in the Open. But yeah, I guess the opportunity for taking tires, lap 18 caution, changed the race, and he was able to take new tires and just go drive through the field and eventually take home the win in the All Star race. So obviously they figured something out. Of course, his driving line was significantly different. Just cutting the bottom, going onto the concrete patch of the track. It's obviously been repaved since they took over, or, since they redid everything at North Wilkesboro. So definitely that was a help there. Compared to what everybody else was doing, and obviously we didn't even mention it yet, but obviously everybody was trying to get onto the grip strip, the sealer patch in turn 3 and 4, and then Kyle Larson found another grip strip, the concrete off the apron there. So obviously he was able to hook the bottom really well, and that's kind of what made the difference there. I mean, obviously, uh, led a bunch of laps after that and just spanked the field. So I'm obviously continuing to dominate, and he's been super fast this year. So I again, like I said, could be on a tear right now in terms of wins if some things went their way the last couple of races and everything. But Reddick and Wallace obviously performed well as well. So, they both took tires in that pit stop, but they just didn't have the speed, and maybe they were a little bit too conservative, anyways, on saving tires compared to Larson. And obviously, with the tire deal there, maybe the tires were too hard, and that's why Larson was able to drive away from everybody because everybody's talking about the tires wearing out too much, and talking about the lack of grip on the track, and they can only get up to like about 65 to 70% of full throttle. So obviously, everybody was kind of babying it throughout the race, but obviously, if you have hard tires and you know how much grip you're able to have and everything, obviously, you can get away with driving that aggressive or driving that hard, having that type of speed in the car, and then also Larson burning it out afterwards and not blowing a tire somehow. So obviously, looks like maybe Goodyear brought in too hard of a tire there. But I mean, my like I told you earlier before the race, or well before this show before we started recording, I said that the race maybe it was boring, but I wasn't really that bored watching it. I was looking for just trying to see different techniques of seeing who was trying to save, who was trying to go through the field, the comers and goers, as they say. So for me personally, I was just looking for, those different strategies employed by different teams on tires, and just how the drivers were executing that strategy and everything. And I mean, I like that, people were, at least, Larson, he was able to pass through the field and everything because at least there was some kind of passing, right? But, of course, the other concern is, before he got to the lead, obviously, Daniel Suarez had been leading and was unchallenged a couple times that Joey Logano got up to him in the rear bumper, and Denny Hamlin got up to him, but they weren't able to get around him and really make any racing before Kyle Larson showed up to the party. So there's still concern there, and obviously the next gen car, doesn't really race that well on short tracks, so still got a lot of work, and I think it's just has to do with the tires and the amount of power in the engine. So we'll see if they ever make any changes to this car on short ovals. Obviously, we know it races great on intermediates, okay-ish super speedways, and I guess, somewhat okay on road courses, although I think Kodo was entertaining this year. But yeah, this next gen car, you know, just has never performed well on short tracks. Um, but I did think, in a way, that this, individual race, the All Star race, definitely very interesting to watch, even though objectively speaking, it wasn't all that exciting there. But great weekend though for everybody. Obviously, successful weekend getting the track back after 27 years. Didn't think that this day would ever come. I think everybody knows that, and of course, just being able to watch it on TV like that is super cool. And I think it was definitely a cool experience to be at if you were able to go there uh, to see the return of that track. But yeah, definitely a really interesting race there for sure. So hopefully they're able to come back to North Wilkesboro next year, and hopefully NASCAR figures out something with this car and its ability to be able to race against each other on on short tracks.
Yeah, the ability to be able to follow, be able to pass, having the tire have fall off. I mean, there's so many things that have been going on with this Gen 7 car from the beginning. Those same problems exist. They still haven't fixed them. They used to use this race as a kind of like a guinea pig, deal. They'd go and R&D stuff in the All-Star race. Um, this would have been a great time to go and try a softer tire. This would have been a great time to take the splitter off or take the rear diffuser off and see what would happen there. Um, they ran the rain tires and they ran faster on rain tires than they did on slick tires, which is, I mean, to be honest, it's because there's more tread and there's probably with the tread blocks, in theory, they probably provided more grip, especially on a surface that's 40 plus years old. Um, Minus the grip strips that were put on there by SMI, some of the work they did to the pit road, which provided new concrete surfaces. Um, Larson was essentially the only person that was able to roll the bottom the way he did. He was diamonding the corner, he was rolling the corner. He didn't really matter what he did. He was on a different stratosphere. Um, Briscoe did have a fast car though, and Bubba and Reddick made their way up through the field. So to be fair, I mean that's really where the action was. There was a lot of people beating and banging behind that, but unfortunately, uh, Fox didn't bother to really show any of that. Um, we'll just go through the running order. 24 starters in this all-star race. Larson, Darrell Walsh Jr., Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, William Clyde Elliott II, the top five, Ryan Blaney, Daniel Suarez, the pole sitter for the race, that Jones boy, Keebler Gibbs, and Pizza Face Joey Logano round out the top 10. Ross Chastain in 11th, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, Josh Berry in the top 15. All the Gibbs cars, was it the three Gibbs cars were all together there, 12th through from between ninth and 14th, but the three of them, the veterans, were all clustered together. Chris Buescher, who started on outside pole, finished 16th. Austin Dillon started 4th, 17th. Kevin Harvick had no speed the whole weekend in his Busch Light Ford, throwing back to his first paint scheme of his Cup career, second paint scheme of his Cup career, for really being honest. The one that he won his first career race with, and the number 29. Brad Keselowski finished 19th. William Byron 20th, Austin Cindric, Kyle Busch, Noah Gagson, and O. Richard round out the field. Stenhouse got spun off the bumper right, by or got into it with Eric Jones. Otherwise, there was only the competition caution midway through the race. Otherwise, there was no cautions. Uh, I mean, I guess the way to look at it is it's nice to see North Wilkesboro back the way that they presented it. It seemed like it was there was a great turnout. Seemed like a lot of these races were well received. The cup racing there was basically god awful. But the other racing that was there, which we'll get into at least with the trucks, the late models, some of the other stuff was good. So it sounds like from what Marcus Smith is saying, what Junebug, something, it sounds like the tea leaves are reading that Wilkesboro might end up being back on the schedule. Now, if you're going to have them on the schedule and you're going to put them, put that on, for the regular season, make sure it's in the summer and make sure that this car is fixed, or else you're not going to have anybody showing up after that first year. Because of the novelty aspect of it. Denny Hamlin brought it up on his podcast. Uh, he had a little 10-minute clip about the race and racetrack and whatever, and talking about that deal and having to repave it, maybe incorporating a progressive bank so that you could have a second groove. Probably it would be similar to what New Hampshire has been for many years, where you kind of run that second groove, but if you can roll the corner the right way, you can get low. I think you could do that without getting rid of the character that is the speedway, where you're going, downhill or whatever. I think you're going downhill in a three and uphill and or no, downhill in a one and uphill in a three. Um, and some of the other characteristics that exist with the racetrack. But we'll see what happens. Basically, all the issues that exist with the car were exposed again. NASCAR, with the lame brains that run it, don't seem to get a clue and aren't fixing it because they're like, well, it's going to cost money and the owners don't want to pay money. Well, you guys made a crappy car and you're the ones who sourced all the parts. So fix it. You're a $1 billion organization. You ought to fix it because there's more road courses and short tracks out there, I think, than or in opportunities to go to other road courses and short track than there are cookie cutter tracks, where essentially this is what this car was made for, seemingly, along with it being less safe. Okay, let's move on. Talked about all that for the All Star race in the Tyson 250 for the trucks. Kyle Larson won. Uh, he was substituting for Alex Bowman because Bowman wasn't, of course, able to race because of his injuries suffered at a sprint car race, wing sprint car race. So Kyle Larson gets the victory in the Spire number 7, led the most laps, won the second stage. But It was it was him and Corey Heim that were the 2 dominant, drivers. Corey Heim started on pole. Uh, we'll go through the field. Larson, the winner from Ty Majeski, Matt DiBurrito, Hocevar, Darrell Walsh Jr., Corey Heim, Matt Crafton, Chase Purdy, Ross Chastain, and Grant Enfinger, your top 10. William Byron was in the 51 for Kyle Busch, finished 11th. Christopher Bell was driving a second truck for Hattori and finished 16th, while the regular driver finished next 26th, the next to last truck on the lead lap. So, or 2 laps down. He was the first truck 2 laps down. My fault. 25 trucks were on the lead lap at the end of the race. So that's interesting. Um, Yeah, I would go and say I have something to say about this race, but I was bowling the whole entire day during the state tournament. I don't know if you saw anything of it, but essentially, from what it reads and what it looks like, it was a benefit between Larson and what do you call Corey Heim, and then you had Osavar in there. You had Bubba Wallace led a few laps as well, but really it was another Larson benefit.
Yeah, I mean, it was another Larson benefit, but I think maybe he had to work a little bit harder for this one than he did the other one. Of course, yeah, Corey Heim led a bunch of laps. Larson um, didn't. I don't think he really had a leading car early in the race, but once he was able to get to the lead, he stayed there for a real long time, and then took towards the end. Uh, you know Bubba Wallace was able to get the lead off of pit stops and be able to stay out and on old tires, which I thought was interesting because of course, old surface, uh, it's really, really hard, and you're already on worn tires, and it's really hard to be able to, keep your car up there. But he was able to lead, a handful of laps there at the end, and was able to go and at least for a few laps, hold off Kyle Larson there. And I guess maybe the hope is that Larson has to, or whoever has to, go through the field and ends up burning their tires, trying to get up to the lead, and then they're on more or less the same tire level as you, and then you're able to hold them off and win the race. But obviously, Larson had too good of tires, and was able to get around him relatively quickly, and then of course had some more cautions at the end, but not nothing too big or anything, and able to get to the end relatively quickly. So um yeah, I mean, the race itself, I mean, there's a lot of cautions and stuff, and that was the difference between this race and the All-Star races. This one had a lot more action in it. I think you're able to get real aggressive, and you saw guys making mistakes and making cautions out of those mistakes. So yeah, definitely a little bit more attrition rate in this one. But I think the truck race probably was a little bit more entertaining, and it probably speaks to the differences in this car versus the Cup car and everything. So yeah, definitely a better race. Even if the same guy won on both days.
Yeah, and that's something where, when you have the experience that Larson has, you're with a cup team running a limited schedule. Uh, it kind of was a confluence of circumstances where that was going to happen. I give credit to Corey Heim though, as a young driver, basically Toyota's number one development driver at the moment. That's in the truck series, that he's been able to stay up front and run competitively, because Tricon Garage basically has not been a real factor as a team over the years. And David Gillen Gray Racing, whatever you want to call it. So now that they're up there every week, it proves that he's got the skills, and they put in a lot of effort, and TRD is really serious about what they want out of this situation. Corey Heim took the points lead with his second place finish at North Wilkesboro. Going into Charlotte this coming weekend, Ty Majeski is second in points, Zane Smith third, Brandon Finger, Christian Eckes round out your top five. Carson Osavar is still outside of the top 10, but he's only 2 points behind D Burrito in 10th and 6 points behind Stuart Friesen in ninth. So as it stands, it would be, we're getting to a point where all the winners so far this year would be in the top 10. Um, Five winners still, Majeski, then Rhodes, Crafton, Gray, Friesen would be the 10, D Burrito behind by 4 points. So very interesting. You have a cluster there of basically, I think, from Friesen to Nick Sanchez, which is 16 points. Those are all contending type people that are looking to get into this playoff. Purdy has been inconsistent. Jake Garcia missed a race and had a rough race this past weekend. And then Ankram's been wildly inconsistent, and Haley Deegan is whatever she is. Rajah Caruth has had some rough races earlier in the year, so he's kind of been in catch-up mode since. So we'll see what happens with that um, amongst these drivers as we move forward for Charlotte here on Friday evening on the Truck Series side. Indianapolis 500 qualifying. The two big storylines: Alex Palou going and winning, running the fastest four-lap average for a pole sitter in the Indianapolis 500, breaking the record that his teammate Scott Dixon had from last year. And the front row for the Indianapolis 500, the drama that took place. Three, yeah, and that's another thing. Three straight Indy poles for Ganassi, uh, something that was last done by Penske, of course, four in a row, and I think three of or whatever, 88, yeah, and that was, um, I think it was Rick Mears. At least in three of those, it was Rick Mears. I feel like Emerson Fittipaldi did it in one of those years, but I might be wrong. Um, Alex Palou put a four-lap average of 234.217 miles an hour. I was wrong. I said the paddle words on the front row. My mistake. Um, Renus VK in the middle of the front row, continuing his great consistency at Indianapolis qualifying wise, putting the Ed Carpenter Racing number 21 on the middle of the front row, 234.211. So 0.006 of a mile an hour. It worked out point, what is it? 0.004, 4 thousandths of a second, the difference between Alex Palou and Renus VK there. And then Felix Rosenquist driving the Ayrton Senna uh, throwback for the McLaren Triple Crown paint schemes, had been the fastest guy for a lot of the week and had been fast all through the weekend. But when the Fast Six came along, he wasn't able to repeat that. In the Firestone Fast Six, Root Beer Floathead Santino Ferrucci got AJ Foyt Racing's 14 into the Fast Six and was a favorite, theoretical favorite for the front row. Um, but had a little bit of issues on his qualifying run. Pato Award and Scott Dixon, the 2008 winner, the trying to become the second six-time pole sitter of the race with Rick Mears if he had won the pole on Sunday. But still, he starts sixth and he wants to win this race. Yeah, I mean, we'll go through the grid. Row three is all former winners of this race: Alexander Rossi, Takuma Sato, driving for Ganassi, and Tony Kanaan in his last race of his career. So all 4-hour McLaren cars are in the top nine. And what is it? All four of the Ganassi cars are in the top 10 since the defending Indy 500 champion Marcus Ericsson qualified 10th. And Benjamin Peterson, the other AJ Foyt car, qualified 11th, and Will Power rounded out the fast 12. Row 5 sees Ed Carpenter, Scott McLaughlin, and Kyle Kirkwood. Row 6, Connor Daly, Joseph Newgarden, and Captain America, Ryan Hunter-Ray. Row 7, Roman Grosjean, Helio Castro-Neves, and Colton Herta. Row 8, Simon Pagino, David Malukas, and Marco Andretti. Row 9, Stefan Wilson, Devlin DeFrancesco, Agustin Canapino. And then where the real sweat started was in row 10. I mean, Malukas was sweating bullets, but he made a Hail Mary run late on Saturday to get himself in 23rd. Callum Ilott had to change chassis to get into the show. RC Enerson, after multiple years of trying to get into the Indy 500, not only gets in the Indy 500, but gets in on Saturday with Able Motorsports. So he'll be making his first start in the Indianapolis 500 on Sunday. And Catherine Legg, who ended up being the fastest of the four Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan cars by qualifying 30th. The final row of the grid determined on Sunday afternoon. Christian Lundgaard, Stingray Robb, and Jack Harvey, the car that went home 30 years after his dad, is Green Rehal. Um, Very emotional time and a crazy thing to watch. That whole dynamic that took place there in that hour session. But yeah, Alex Palou running the fastest first lap, I think, ever, or fastest lap. Because I'm trying to see here if they would write 4 lap average, and right there. I'm trying to look at the laps. Yeah, it shows the time. They don't show the. They don't show the. Oh, they're showing all the different qualifying events. Oh, interesting. They don't. They just show the time of the lap. They don't show the speed, unfortunately.
I think
But
his fastest one was 2:35, wasn't it?
yeah, 2:35. I was trying to find what the actual lap was. Is 2:35 point um whatever. So okay. So but Polo gets the pole, the points leader, finished second in this race 2 years ago on his way to the IndyCar Championship, Josh. And he set himself up really good for a possible Indianapolis 500. And Chip Ganassi likes winners, even if they're likely to um, leave this. He leaves the team for uh, McLaren. I want to bring up one piece before we get into more discussion. Stephen Wilson, after the practice incident that took place between him and Catherine Legg, um, was taken off on a backboard and will be out of the Indianapolis 500 due to a back injury. Dreyer and Reinbold will announce who will be driving for them um, in later in the week. So it's unfortunate to see and hear for a guy who basically puts all his eggs in trying to run this 1 week, one race a year. The brother of the late Justin Wilson, and now he's going to be out with a um, what is it? It says 12th thoracic vertebrae fracture in back for the back injury when he got basically pile drove by Catherine Legg when people started backing off late in the practice there. So a huge incident, unfortunate for Stephen Wilson. Sad to see that be the case for him. But thoughts to him and his family, of course. But Josh, we have to talk about the front row. I mean, Pelot was fast, but wasn't theoretically the fastest guy through all these sessions. But when it counted, he showed up kind of like what his teammate usually does, Scott Dixon, at least at Indy. And the McLaren guys who had been fast for most of this week, unfortunately, weren't able to bring that speed out on Sunday.
Yeah, Hello Polo, of course, goes out and wins the pole, and yeah, I mean, like you said, he wasn't the name that we really saw throughout practice on Friday, but his team, Chip Ganassi Racing, of course, they showed a lot of speed as in general, so it's not too surprising that his car was the ended up being the fastest there, but he was able to whatever they've got working on that car, he was able to go out and set the record for the fastest pole and then just the fastest single lap speed that we've seen since 1996. So they've got it hooked up on the track. They've got the balance on the race car just right. Just enough downforce to keep it from spinning out or anything, and also just a enough drag to hold it down the straights and everything. So for for Pelot, I mean he's already gotten the Indianapolis Grand Prix a couple last weekend. Now he's got the pole. So now I think the question is, can he win the race? And you know, I think it's definitely possible. Simon Pagenaud did a couple years ago, and as long as they are able to get out in front and race trim, I think they've got a really good shot. But yeah, as far as the qualifying in general, with the speeds that they're running now, of course, the fastest field ever. I remember a couple of years ago when Scott Dixon won the pole back in 2017, and people were shocked at the 232 lap that he put during his qualifying run for the pole, and how you could hear the crowd on the broadcast when they said 232 because it was the fastest since 1996, and now the field has gotten faster. And the last 2 years, and Friday you see 232 average, and you're like, oh, that's really fast. Then 233, okay, they're really going fast. 234, oh shit, they're going real fast now. And then Alex Palou goes out and puts down a 235 on his first lap. And of course, the trade off there is, of course, the faster you go there, I mean, you obviously expect a bigger fall off um, and everything. So, uh, for for the field to be that quick shows just how much work goes into it, but then also just how much they've, I guess, advanced in car setup the last couple of years and figuring out how to extract speed. And it also leads um, the theory that potentially next year or the year after they're gonna actually set the actual track record for qualifying or practice, whichever one actually counts. Of course, remember Ari Leyendijk, 236 miles an hour back in 1996, and they haven't broken it since then. But I think it's definitely possible with the new engine package that's supposed to come at some point. With the hybrid engines that they've been kind of toying with Honda at least, and possibly Chevrolet. I think that's definitely something that's on the horizon that could add to a speed increase, possibly. Would like to see, because I think it'd be really cool if they finally set the track record like that. But that's should be interesting. But the rest of the field, I think we talked about in our previews last week. We talked about who would be on the front row for this, and I mean, I think we definitely got two of the fast six right there with Scott Dixon. Pato Ward was in it. Kanan, well, he was in the fast 12, so he was in there in that competition. Missed it on Newgarden. They just didn't have the speed on Saturday to be able to get into the fast 12 on Sunday. Malukas obviously was slow as well there, but I think really surprised by the pace that AJ Foyt Racing, and especially Santino Ferrucci, Ben Peterson, hasn't really done anything yet in IndyCar, and then all of a sudden here in Indianapolis, and even on Friday, we didn't really see anything that would indicate that they would be in the fast 12, but they went and laid down a really good lap um, there. So I think it's really impressive that they're able to put both their cars towards the front. So we'll see if they're able to stay there next on next Sunday. See if Ferrucci is able to do something in this race. Of course, when he's been in this race, he's done relatively well and has had some good finishes here at Indianapolis. So now his best career start here at Indy. Ferrucci, I think, is legitimately a dark horse pick to win this race. So we'll see if he's able to make it happen, of course, and why not with AJ Foyt, of course. To see if we can get Super Tech's sixth win as owner or driver, and of course, great paint scheme, American flag paint scheme there for Ferrucci. So yeah, that was definitely surprising, but definitely a good storyline. And of course, Graham Rahal failing to qualify. Didn't think it would happen, but Jack Harvey snatched it away there at the last minute. And of course, they probably have to make a lot of changes in their engineering staff there at RLL. So we'll see if something happens like that. Of course, we'll see if they make any changes, but that's a huge blow for the month of May for that team, and we'll see how it affects Rahal going forward in the season. And of course, you know how fitting is it, basically 30 years after Bobby Rahal fails to qualify, son Graham goes out, fails to qualify for the 107th Indy 500.
And that whole dynamic, as I mentioned earlier, was crazy. I think I mean, they talked about it. He talked about it in the post mortem that they were dead to rights when they went to Texas. And then after that, when they did the open test, they knew they were in trouble because for how close these cars are, you're not going to find I mean, you're talking about thousandths of a second. And that's literally what it was there at the end of the field, thousandths of a second or thousandths of a mile an hour to get in the show. It was much different 30 years ago for Bobby Rahal when he was driving the True Sports chassis and trying to, be the savior, make an American chassis and make it work in IndyCar. He promptly went and bought a Lola and went and drove a Lola for the next, I don't know, 3 years, 2.5 years after that. Um, that was a massive moment in his career. He never won a race after his championship year in 1992. I was thinking about it for these guys that have DNQ'd, how it's affected their careers afterwards. Um, I mean, Ryan Hunter-Reay is, I think, the contrast to that because he got sent by Marco and John Andretti and and Tony Kanaan when all the Andretti cars were were dog crap. And he came back and not only won an IndyCar championship, he won the Indianapolis 500. But otherwise, you look back, it's the history of some of these guys that have been knocked out of this race. Um, the the future has not exactly looked great. Um, James Hinchcliffe went from winning the pole a couple of years before that to failing to qualify for the race. And then I think like 2 years later, he's 2 or 3 years later, he's now a TV commentator. He only won, I think, maybe two more races the rest of his career. Uh, Al Unser Jr., for all intents and purposes, his career and relevance is over after he and Emerson Fittipaldi failed to qualify in 1995. Emerson Fittipaldi almost died in an accident in Michigan the following year, but that was basically it. Penske, it took him all those years to come back to Indianapolis, and that it's proof positive that it doesn't matter who you are. You could be the greatest ever at the speedway, like Roger Penske, or you could be a small team that has a 1/50th of the budget or whatever. It doesn't Indianapolis doesn't care. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway doesn't care. You have to come correct every time you're there because it'll bite you and it will take everything out of you. And the symmetry, the sad symmetry that took place with the look on Bobby Rahal's face on that wall, knowing that Graham was gonna get knocked out of the race, and then Graham sitting in the car, you could start seeing it, like, when they zoomed into his, visor, they zoomed in where you could see, like, the emotion starting to build up knowing this is a race he's wanted to win his whole life. He's been close a few times before, had some decent cars for not only his dad, but, at Ganassi and come up short. And now he's going to be watching the Indianapolis 500 uh, somewhere. I'm curious as to where that'll be. That was, I mean, insane. You look at how, what do you call Christian Lundgaard won the pole for the Indy road course a couple of weeks ago, and then you put him on an oval and they're dog crap. Jack Harvey, who basically is not going to have a job next year, knocks out one of his best friends, and basically the reason why he has a ride in Graham to get into the Indy 500. Stingray Robb, I think the plan for Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan was they were going to isolate Stingray Robb and hopefully put him in the position where he'd have to keep on going out there. Well, the Ray Hall cars are not that good. Only one of them beat him, and fundamentally, that's part of the reason why uh, Graham was in the position he was in. And now with Graham Rahal going home, you have Stefan Wilson out of the Indianapolis 500. Catherine Legg has a destroyed race car. So Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing is in bad shape in general. For Dreyer and Reinbold, this is their only race of the year. Trying to get a backup car ready or getting a car ready for a backup driver. Not sure if Sage Karam is around or available, but he likes coming from the last row to go and finish in the top 10. So maybe they ought to go and give him a call. Uh, just a thought. But who knows who they're going to have. I was able to find one of these 8,000 reports IndyCar has. Alex Palou's first lap was 235.131. Uh, Renus VK had a lap of 235.019 on his first lap. So I mean that's why it was so close. 234.4 to Below's 234.399. It was very close. 403 to 399. VK 233.982 on lap 3 to 233.930 for Pelot. And then the last lap, Rena's VK 233.444 versus Alex Pelot's 233.415. So theoretically, Rena's VK lost the pole on the first lap because he was faster than Pelot the other 3 laps. He gave up too much time in the first lap, which is insane to think. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of a second. And then that was the same case in terms of the um, the back end of the grid as well, because you look at how um, how that how that went. Jack Harvey and Graham Rahal ends up going six by 0.007 of a mile an hour, point zero zero was it five? Was it 5 or 4 5? Yeah, 45 ten thousandths of a second. I think it's my raw or no 44 ten thousandths of a second over the span of 4 laps sends Jack Harvey into the Indy 500 and sends Graham Rahal home. So really crazy qualifying. Uh, Echo what you said, Josh, about AJ Foyt's team showing up out of nowhere. I think Michael Cannon being the main guy now running the team with all the great experience he's had over the years and all the tricks he's learned through all these different teams has given them pace. Now, question I have is, will that would transfer over to race pace um, come Sunday? As it stands, I'm trying to go look. Benjamin Peterson ran the eighth fastest time of the day today. Going looking back through that, Santino Ferrucci was 31st. I'm trying to see. Yeah, so trying to go through go combine results. I don't know what that means. No, oh, that no combined. That's the fastest laps they've run all month. Okay, then in the practice they showed. So that was willpower. Yeah, willpower was the fastest, but it doesn't show breakdowns. Section results, I guess. Well, that's for every car. I'm not going to go through all of that. Um, yeah, for a section lap, going start finishing at turn one. Joseph Newgarden was the fastest, with Connor Daly and Alex Palou uh, behind him. Takuma Sato and from turn one to the short shoot, Sato, Dixon, Power, Palou. Uh, shoot to turn two, Dixon, Sato, Power, and Palou. I guess we're gonna have a mirror there. Um, Newgarden, Pato Award, Scott Dixon, Marcus Ericsson, Kumasato, Will Power. Polo was ninth. So I guess we're finding a pattern here of who the fast cars are. There's Elio Castro Dash Neves and Tony Kanaan sighting there coming in out of turn three into the short chute. Connor Daly, who wants to win this race in the worst way. Power, Sato, Award, Dixon, Pelot, Kanaan, Erickson. Connor Daly was 10th. And then turn forward front straight, Pelot, or Award, Pelot, Sato, Erickson, Benjamin Peterson, and Santino Ferrucci. And then to start from for FS from to start finish. So um, is Colton Erda and Ryan Underray, Takuma Sato, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, there's one more practice they're gonna have on Friday, of course, Carb Day, pit stop competition, all weather, at least those things, weather permitting. They'll have. They used to have the Freedom 100. Don't know why they got rid of it. Um, they're gonna have music and all kinds of craziness. That'll definitely go on, and we'll get into the Indy 500 in more detail uh, later on. But as it stands right now, Ganassi and McLaren look like they're the teams to beat, but you can never count out Penske at his house, literally. And you can't count, and in this case, AJ Foyt, being that he's able to be at the racetrack, maybe the vibes and everything of Supertex being there might push Santino Ferrucci to get his first IndyCar win, get that win, like Josh said, first win for AJ at Indianapolis since 1999 with Kenny Breck, who won when Robbie Gordon ran out of gas uh, coming off of turn four, going to the white flag lap, driving for John Menard. All right, so yeah, F1 at Imola, we talked about that. It was canceled due to torrential rains and flooding, with basically no uh, likely scenario where they're going to go and come back to make up the race, at least this year. So unfortunate in one way, but it's for the people that live there. It's fortunate because the resources are being focused towards them, and hopefully, the safety and being waters will recede, and they'll be able to uh, recover. Hopefully, but we don't know. It's kind of crazy how all these weather events seem to be happening in recent years, and segments of the population want to act like these things don't exist. So whatever. We'll get into the roundup now. The F1 Academy was at Barcelona, at the whatchamacall, Barcelona. Yeah, so the what do they call that circuit? Catalunya circuit. Uh, so we'll get into that at Barcelona. Emily Behus won race one. She's part of MP Racing. Amna Al Kabasi run race two, and Bueller won in race three for ART. For the results there, the standings, Marta Garcia scored points in all three races, increases her points lead to 41 points over Hamda Al Kabasi. Bueller is third, 11 points behind Al Kabasi. Pulling fourth, and Amna Al Kabasi is fifth. There's a really good battle between Pulling, Amna Al Kabasi, and Nina Marti. 7 points between those three drivers. They'll take a month off before they race at Zandvoort again. The I think I went in and did that on. Okay, that's why. Um, Give me a second here because I did it right on the outline page. Supercars were at Simmons Plains uh, this past weekend, and the Repco Supercars Championship uh, sees uh, Ned Whissey Tasmania Super Sprint. The results of the races at Tasmania Super Sprint. Race 10 was won by Will Brown of the Coca Cola Erebus Chevy team. And race 11, Brock Feeney for Red Bull, Chevy, and then Will Brown again in race 12 won. So 2 out of 3 for uh, Will Brown. A pretty good weekend in general because of the qualifying practice beats for the Coca Cola team in general at uh, at the Tasmania Super Sprint. So going into that, Brock Feeney, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Will Brown all have 3 wins so far this year. Brody Kostecki leads for the Armor All Pole with 3. Van Gisbergen, Free, Feeney, and Will Brown have 2. So basically, we know what's going on. Either one of those 2 teams is going to win and win all the poles. That's what this whole season has been. The Fords are definitely on a back foot. They have a little over 3 weeks before the Darwin Triple Crown. Hopefully, some things can be changed for their sake so they can actually be competitive. Brody Kostecki still leads the points by 87 over his teammate Will Brown. Chaz Monster third, in the best Ford. The Walkinshaw Andretti United Mobile One Ford 166 points out of the lead. Shane Van Gisbergen 172 out in fourth. Brock Feeney 191 out in fifth. Cam Waters, who won the first round of the championship, is in sixth, 229. We'll go to NHRA at Chicagoland. Excuse me. This past weekend, um, man, Clay Milliken got the win in Top Fuel first time in 3 years. I think they said. So that's Tim Wilker. Yeah, made his first start 21 years ago. 1 year, 20. Tim Wilkerson winning at the track where he won his first funny car race. Milliken won there on the 25th anniversary of his first start yesterday, and also on the 20th anniversary. So there's Gate and he was at Chicago. Okay? Um, Trying to find the results more detailed. It doesn't seem to show that right there. Uh, oh, so the Pro Sign Motorcycle Pro Mod is Jose Gonzalez. No Top Alcohol Dragster, so no Tony Stewart. Uh, in Top Field, Clay Milligan in the 51, driving for Rick Ware, amongst other people, beats Josh Hart in the Top Fuel final, and the ladder itself, uh, Clay Milliken came from the number 11 spot, beat Sean Langdon, Doug Coletta, and Brittany Force on his way to the victory. TJ Zizzo, or I mean, Josh Hart came from the 12 spot, beat Antron Brown, Jacob McNeil, and TJ Zizzo, who was the 16th qualifier, who made it to semifinals, local guy there. In the funny car category, Tim Wilkerson, as mentioned, gets the victory. He qualified fifth, beat Blake Alexander, Alex Laughlin, John Force, who got him on the tree but smoked the tires, and then Ron Capps He was late on the tree again, Wilkerson, but slowed down. Ron Capps had issues and had to slow down. Wilkerson gets the victory there. He's teammates with Tony Schumacher these days. The Skag Power Equipment team. Ron Capps was sixth. Got a got a bye run in the second round because I guess both drivers had issues. Um, and then beat Chad Green in the semis before his exit in or loss in the final. In Pro Stock, Dallas Glenn, another victory, number one qualifier, uh, beat Chris McGay, his Glenn, his teammate Greg Anderson, Jerry Tucker in the semifinal, and then Derek Kramer in the final. Kramer from the two spot beat Mason McGahey, Christian Quadra, Aaron Stanfield to get there. Camry Caruso won the call out the day before, but got treed by Jerry Tucker and lost. Eric Ender's season continues to be pretty tough. Couldn't happen to a nicer person. The our Gage Herrera benefit, which is the pro stock motorcycle class, continues. Started number one spot, got a bye run essentially, and then in round one, Ron Turno wasn't able to show. Mark Ingerson beats him in round two, and then his teammate Eddie Krawick in the semifinals before beating Chip Ellis in the final. Ellis from the number two hole, Chris Bostic red lit in the first round, then Chase Van Zandt red lit in the second. Ellis and Hector Arana have a battle in the semifinal. Close race, but Chip Ellis won, advanced to said final. And then in Pro Mod, I mentioned earlier Jose Gonzalez, the winner over Chris Thorne in Pro Modified. Standings right now in Top Fuel, Steve Torrance, the points leader by 17 over Brittany Force. It's 27 over Austin Prock, 31 Justin Ashley, 34 over Leah Pruitt. So very close point situation within the top five. Top eight are within 100 points. So that's one thing you always have to look at. Looks like 12 drivers will make the playoff as it stands right now. In funny card, same thing. I think 12 cars will make it out of there. Six drivers within 100 points. Hagan leading by 13 over Caps, 40 over Height, DeJoria 62, Wilkerson 87, and Chad Green 91. Dallas Glenn putting a whooping on him these days. 168-point lead over Matt Hartford. Add another 7. You got Derek Kramer in third. Add another 8, and you have Troy Coughlin in fourth. Aaron Stanfield rounds out the top 5. Kyle Koretsky right now is 295 points out in 10th. Eric Enders is glad that as long as she shows up for every race, she'll be in the playoff. As it stands, I mean, right now she's 14th in points behind Fernando Quadra Jr. And Mason McGay and Jerry Tucker are teammate. That's kind of hilarious. On Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera, same deal. 169-point lead on Eddie Krawick, 175 on Matt Smith, Chase Van Zandt 212, and Hector Arana Jr. 218 back, 247 points separate first and 10th. Chip Ellis is in 10th now. Interesting to see how that all goes as the season progresses. We'll do Formula 2 at Monaco. They'll be racing this weekend, of course. Or yeah, you got Formula 2, you got Formula 3. So we'll go 3 and then we'll go 2. The standings right now, Bortoletto leads by 20 points over Saucy and 30 over Boganovic and Gabrielle Mini. Marty is fifth It's a close race between 3rd through ninth are separated by 9 points, so lot to play for. The Imola round being canceled, I wonder how that'll, affect the schedule for the F3 because they have a little bit more, flexibility with their schedule, um, a lot more openings there. The teams championship, Trident, leads by 30 points over Prema, High Tech, ART, Campos round out the top 5. In Formula 2, same situation, though, I think probably in June they could run a race or organize something in July, or they have that huge gap between Monza and Yas Marina where they could end up inserting another round. Teo Pocher leads by 3 over Frederick Vesti. Iwasa third, 7 points back. Ollie Bierman, Kushmini tied for fourth, or fourth and fifth there, 41 points. Hauger in a battle there between, there's 10 points separating fourth through 10th. So interesting, but tight confines of Monaco, how that will affect the drivers. So speaking of Monaco, it is the Monaco Grand Prix. It's a principality. It's the one. It's the pageantry and all these rich bastards that have multi-million-dollar boats and cars, and most of the drivers live there. Um, in the grand scheme of things, we kind of know what's going to happen already, unless it rains. Then there might be a little bit of a difference. Mercedes wasn't able to try their upgrades. So now Mercedes will be debuting their upgrade package. Any of these other teams that were thinking of doing an upgrade package at Imola will be debuting it at Monaco this coming weekend. Um, I mean, over the years, Grand Prix winners I mean, this race has gone on since 1929. Of course, Ayrton Senna has won it the most times, 6. And it was in a very tight, small period from 87 to 93. Um, Last year, Charles Leclerc won the pole, but crashed and wasn't able to start. Sergio Perez ended up winning the race over Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen. So the winners, there's I'm trying to look at current drivers. Lewis Hamilton's a three-time winner of the Monaco Grand Prix. He won it in 2008 in his second year as a driver, and then he's won it 2 more times uh, as a driver for Mercedes. Uh, Fernando Alonso won back-to-back in '06 and '07. So those are the 2 active drivers that have won multiple Monaco Grand Prix. And scrolling through, Fish Lips has won this race in 2021, and, other than that, I mean, other than that, you're going back Lewis, and all these guys are retired, so, Max Verstappen going for his 2nd win at Monaco, Sergio Perez trying to go for 2 in a row, add his name to that illustrious list of repeat winners at Monaco. He joined the likes of Juan Manuel Fangio, Nicky Lauda, Jody Scheckter, all world champions, Fernando Alonso, and Sebastian Vettel, all as winners twice at the Monaco Grand Prix. If he were to do it, or if Fish Lips were to do it. So, what say you, Josh? Which Red Bull are you going to pick for the Monaco Grand Prix?
I mean, it's really tough because you have Verstappen, who's been very fast this year and clearly the favorite more than likely. But you also have his teammate who has a propensity for just when you think Verstappen is gonna win, here comes Sergio Perez and comes out and gets this win. But you know what? I'll just go with Verstappen here. I think he wins it this year. I think this race should go smoothly for him. Unless it rains, which I suppose is possible. I think he should have no problems picking up the win here. Um, I am interested to see, if Ferrari qualifies on pole again, like they have the last 2 years, but then somehow they will botch the strategy once again. Uh, so third time's the charm there. So we'll see if that takes place or not. But yeah, I'll go for stopping podium, or not podium, but first place. Um, Perez second, and then Alonso rounding out the podium there.
Yeah, it's solid based on what's been going on all year. Um, Alonso, of course, being good at this track. Also, at one point, deciding to take the Monaco Grand Prix off to go and run the Indianapolis 500. Once upon a time when he drove for McLaren. So for me, as always, I'll just go the other way. Sergio Perez, the street course master. Even though at Miami he got basically uh, owned by Verstappen there. I'll go with Checo to win. I will take uh, I'll take Alonso to finish second, and I will take. This is crazy. Why not? Who cares? I'm gonna pick Charles Leclerc to finish third. I'm gonna say that Max Verstappen gets into some buddy or something uh, and doesn't finish the race. Hence, the more scattered uh, podium. And Perez at that point can also, uh, I think, would take the points lead if he were to do that,
Yeah, I
if it
think
came out that way.
think that would happen.
Um, I mean, stranger things have happened at Monaco. There was once in 1996 when I think 8 cars were classified at the end of that Grand Prix, and Olivier Panis for uh, Ligier won his one and only Grand Prix. Everybody had issues in that race. Every car that you thought was going to win ended up something happening to him. So crazier things have happened.
Botas too.
Highly doubt. Yeah, Botas when his wheel literally was frozen solid onto his car. Lewis has been there and been screwed over by his team with strategy. Daniel Ricciardo famously has had that happen to him too back in the day. Uh, it's a win that every Formula One driver wants. It's not really a racetrack. It's basically a processional race. The cars are too wide and too long to even overtake. Uh, I mean, whatever, but it is Monaco, and it's been there since the beginning of Formula One. So we have to do that. I'm curious to see what some of these teams in the midfield will bring to the table now. Um, I think. Uh, oh wow. Uh, let's see. I'm going into Formula One just out of the to go and look at it. Standings. Just to remind people, uh, Verstappen has a 14-point lead on Checo. Fernando Alonso's in third, 19 points out of Lewis Hamilton. Carlos Sainz is fifth, 4 points out of George Russell. Uh, Charlie Claire is seventh, 10 points behind Carlos Sainz. Lance Stroll and Lando Norris, all the double-digit point scorers. In the constructors, Red Bull is out by a country mile. Aston Martin's up by 6 points over Mercedes, and Ferrari is in third. And then there's everybody else. So for the everybody else. What are they gonna bring to the table now that we're gonna get on a bit of a roll? 2 races in a row. There's gonna be a lot of races coming along here. So if you get things right or put yourself in a good position, you could have a chance to compete as we go in through the summer. Or if you go the other way, it could go really sideways and your development will start for 2024 uh, before the British Grand Prix. Something to see though. Uh, Lando Norris had the fastest lap in this race last year. For anyone that does care, McLaren has been on and off all year in Formula One. We'll see if they can show up at the track, which they've won the most races at of any other team constructor in Formula One history. Uh, Amongst other things, the French connection. What can they do with Alpine? And who knows what else? I mean, Logan Sargent has done all right at Monaco in his time, so maybe he can put something together and pull one out of the hat. The NASCAR triple header at Charlotte. We'll get into that. Let's go and get some entry lists on uh, posted there. The North Carolina Education Lottery 200, which will be on Friday night. Only 36 trucks for 36 spots. They the starting lineup, latest final entry list. Yeah, the link didn't work. They don't have the Roper Racing 04 has now decided to go and not enter for whatever reason. G2G with Armani Williams. That means he'll back into the race. Don't have anybody listed for the one truck for Tricon. Chris Wrong in the 02 again. Trying to see if there's anything different really. Mason Maggio in the 22. Matt Mills in the 20. Brian Vargas in the 30. Josh Rayum in his own 33. Keith McGee in the 34. Bailey Curry driving the 41 for Nice Motorsports. Jack Wood driving the 51 for KBM. Tyler Hill in the 56, or instead of his brother, Justin Carroll. That might be another piece that's part of it. Justin Carroll, who's running limited races, might have they might have paid off the 04 team to not show up. And then Armani Williams, as I mentioned earlier. So we look at that. I mean, I I'll go here um, first, so I can get a little bit more time to help my voice. Uh, I'm gonna go pick Corey Heim to win. He's been on a heater recently. They've been fast at Tricon. I think that he can get another win here and build that momentum into this summer stretch. Of course, the schedule is going to get really wonky now as we go on through the rest of the season for the Truck Series, but all those points count. So I say that Corey Haim's the winner after the race on Friday night. Go through the points again, just out of curiosity of all the drivers that have run. I count Jake Garcia under that. So 22 drivers have run basically every race. I mean, you can count Spencer Boyd under that too, but nobody really gives a crap about Spencer Boyd. Um, my wild card, my wild card. I mean, it's right there. It's like a Kyle Farnsworth fastball. And I think this will probably be the last chance I'll have to pick him as a wild card. Nick Sanchez. The guy has been flirting with a victory for I don't know how many races this year. Been super fast everywhere. Got to be the time for Nick Sanchez to get that victory, solidify himself into the playoffs, and start putting the squeeze on for some of these other veteran drivers in the series. Uh, what say you, Josh, in regards to the trucks of Charlotte?
I mean, good picks there. Yeah, I mean, Corey Heim really been really good. Obviously, has a little bit of momentum from North Wilkesboro there. But I mean, it's hard to go. We're at a mile and a half home track, home race. So, I'm gonna go with Zane Smith, taking home the win here, this weekend. They've just been really good, so far to start the year, and it's just really hard to go against him. Uh, you know, for he's the points leader. Well, he's not the points leader, but he's already got 2 race wins. This is a good. I think this is a good track for him to go out and get a third victory, and only 16 points back in points. So he's got a chance to take the points lead here coming up. I think for me, wild card. Um, I will go uh as a wild card. Uh, I mean, I'll go with Roger Cruth once again as a wild card. I've been picking him recently, but it's just like I look at the standings there. And the reason why I do this is because I look at the standings there, and it just looks like from the people around his name just aren't trustworthy enough, I guess. And I think mile and a halves for driver that is relatively inexperienced. I think really easy. So I think you can get a good finish there. So that's kind of why I go with him because it's easy. I feel like it's easy to pick him there, but that's what I'll go with. So bit of standard issue there in terms of picks, but we'll
We're
roll
going to
with it.
change a wild card to the Raja Caruth wild card for you because
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
it would be like me when starting next week. I'll go Jake Garcia and you'll go Raja Caruth. And we'll just do that for the rest of the year until they move into the top 11 or something. But yeah, Raja Caruth, Josh's wild card pick, generally does have experience at Charlotte and an ARCA car last year. So, and he's been picking up pace as he's gone along. So, um, curious to see what he can do at Charlotte. He'll be running double duty actually, running the Xfinity race for Alpha Prime. Go through that 40 cars, 40 spots, nobody going home. Blaine Perkins, again, will be in the hour number 02. Smithley in the 4 for JD Motorsports. Stefan Parsons back in the SS Greenlight 07. Greg Alding in the 08. Uh, Kyle Busch will be driving the 10 for Colleague. Ty or Keebler Gibbs will be in the 19 for Gibbs. Connor Mozak in the 24 for Sam Hunt. Uh, Emmerling driving the 35 for himself. Joe Graff back in the 38. Yeah, I mentioned Raja Caruth. CJ McLaughlin, the automatic caution, will be in the 53. Timmy Hill will be making the show. It looks like with the 66, it's been a rough year for them this year. Former guest of the show, Dawson Cram, will be driving the CHK 74. No listed driver as of now for the 91. Kyle Segan the 28, and Carson Osavar will be doing double duty in the Spire 77. So, Josh, let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think real easy here. Go with Kyle Busch winning in Xfinity here with Colleague Racing this weekend. Hasn't been easy actually for him, but I feel like he can get it done at this track here for Colleague. which hasn't been as strong. But they did win on the mile and a half with Chandler Smith uh, at Las Vegas early in the year, and now we're starting to see more mile and a halves. And Kyle Busch did run top 10 there at Las Vegas earlier in the year. So yeah, very easy here to go Kyle Busch in terms of that. Um, wild card in this one. Um, for here, I'm gonna go Parker Kligerman wild card. Of course, he's been running pretty solidly as well as of late, and let's see if he can turn in a top 10 finish here this weekend at Charlotte. I think he's got a lot of experience in the uh, truck series and everything. Now let's see if he can bring that up in his return to the Xfinity series.
Yeah, we'll see. What is it? Last year they won the race with Tyler Reddick. I think it's either there or Texas. One of those two they won. The 48 team. So curious to see what they can do there. It's a good solid pick. I mean, or didn't get make the show for the truck race uh, at the North Wilkesboro, so he's probably looking for some redemption. 17. So 25 drivers. If we're gonna get into it, we could really add Josh Williams because he did what everyone would want to do because it was a joke by how they treated his situation. And Greg Alding's run all but one race. But if we're doing it under that regular count, I think that means mm, so that means it'll be 13th or oh, so actually under that logic, Parker Kligerman is out as a wild card
Oh yeah.
under under because if I don't even count the 2 guys who have 10 starts, it will be 13 drivers or it'll be the top 13. If I count that, the 2 drivers would be I think the top was it 14 or something or yeah, at least the top 14.
I
So
can
I
amend this
guess
real quick and
okay.
put in Kaz Grala. They've been running
I
pretty good as well, I think.
I think you picked Kaz Grala a lot too. I don't know, maybe that's just me. I have to check this here. So wild card makes I mean it's a solid pick. Toyotas at Charlotte, usually pretty solid. Sam Hunt Racing has brought good vehicles at times the to the racetrack here recently. Um, I'll go with a Cup guy too. I'll go with Keebler. He's won here before. He's won on the Roval. He's won on the Oval. He moved Chase Briscoe to win said race a couple of years ago. Um, and I figure, using the energy he's got from making the All Star race, somehow or another fading another guy trying to run him over. I think he'll have a really fast race car. John Hunter Nemechek definitely will be giving him a big battle. Um, I do agree with Josh about Chandler Smith and Kyle Busch. Figure it's going to be amongst that crew. Cole Custer hasn't really shown out all year. This is a racetrack where he's done really well at in an Xfinity car previously. Maybe this is his time to shine. You never know with Austin Hill. He's been fast all year. Um, and Sheldon Creed, if you can run the fence, it probably is a good chance that Sheldon Creed will be the first one that gets there. The wild card pick for me for this weekend, I'm gonna go with. eh, I'm gonna go with. I'll go with No, I'll go with Ryan Sieg. Ryan Sieg, he's had uh, success at Charlotte before. They've had some interesting strategies to try to get themselves track position. They seem to always come out and do well at the 1.5 mile tracks. Why can't you go and put it together in one of the closest races they're going to have to their for their season, trying to give themselves momentum to get into the playoffs. So, so Keebler, Gibbs to win, and Ryan Sieg wild card. So the last uh, race that we will discuss is the Coca-Cola 600, um, the longest race on the calendar. Um, you have four 100 lap stages. You have a halftime break for a moment of silence now. You have all kinds of stuff. I'll go into the entry list. That's a cool looking car that Sheldon Creed's gonna be racing this weekend. Um, uh, and then going to go through the points. Just bring the points up if I can find that. Yeah, so Coca-Cola 600 changes in terms of drivers this week. Uh, I got a couple. JJ Ailey will be in the 15. Uh, Zane Smith in the 38. And Barry continues as in the 48 car, at least for this week. Todd Gilliland will be in the 51. BJ McLeod in the 78. And Jimmy Johnson will be back this weekend driving for his own team in number 84, Club Wyndham Chevrolet, with Todd Gordon as his crew chief. And just to get through the points over here in the Cup Series, I mean, everybody that's, I guess, 32, 31 drivers have run every race this season. Uh, Top 16 as it stands: Chastain, Bell, Harvick, Hamlin, Byron, Truex, Blaney, Reddick, Keselowski, Kyle Larson. Those are all the overall points. Byron and Larson are the top two right now in terms of playoff standings. Kyle Busch is up there as well. Logano, Busher, Richard, Bubba Wallace, and Chase Briscoe round out your 16. Um, with Bowman, who still hasn't, we still don't know when he's going to come back. Um, you went first for Xfinity, so I'll go first for this one, and I'll just go with Kyle Larson. I feel like we're seeing a replay of 2021. You talked about it earlier, Josh, where you said they could have really broken off a lot of wins.
Yep.
He almost won this race last year. Briscoe had a chance to pass him and wrecked himself. Um, Larson has won this race before. I figure he's going to go and do it again. That's my pick to win Coca-Cola 600. I'll probably be passed out by the end, so that'll be great. Because it'll be a long day, you know, being a part of the VFW deal there, and the picnic and all that. Larson to win, and then my wild card choice, which is basically anybody outside of the cutoff. It's really hard because there's really not a lot of um, great driving that's going on amongst this group. Uh I really don't know. I mean, it's crazy. I'm gonna have to go with Keebler. They have the 1.5 mile package really set up well. I mentioned it in the Xfinity. He's been really good at this racetrack. So rookies have won this race before. Matt Kenseth in the year 2000. It's been a race where people have won the first career race. One Jeff Gordon did that in 1994. Bobby Labonte in 95. Both Hall of Famers. Um, Matt Kenseth, as I mentioned. I'm trying to think. Casey Mears in 2007. David Rudiman in 2009 after Tony got into it with him and Billy Badbutt. Um, I might be forgetting another one, but those are some of the ones that have won the first career race at the Coca-Cola 600. So it is possible. Wouldn't be out of the realm uh, as wild card. I mean, I do think that Bubba Wallace right now and the 2311 team, they have a lot of momentum going on in their favor, and they seem to be faster than the Gibbs guys at times, which is interesting. And I think it might be an opportunity for one of those guys to look at them as a possibility for the 600, especially if the high line does come in, because Reddick loves the high line. Um, Josh, what do you think for picks for the Coca-Cola 600?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is gonna be an interesting race here. 400 miles, or 400 laps, 600 miles. Of course, you have the extra stage too, so that's gonna be interesting. And we'll see how it all plays out here. Um, but I'm gonna go with yeah, I'm actually gonna go, yeah, with Tyler Reddick winning the 600. I think, they've had a lot of speed on, the mile and a halfs, and I think, the long distance, I think, plays into his favor, and especially, with the strategy and everything. I think the high line came into play at the very end of this race. And I think Tyler Reddick will, definitely be up there for the win, and be in contention for it. Wild card, I'm gonna go with Corey LaJoy. I think Corey's, I mean, it's a mile and a half, but it's also a long race, and a lot of strategy can come into play here, especially even though there are stages in this one. So I definitely think Corey LaJoy, can be a surprise here and get a uh, good finish in that car, and prove that Spire can compete on a mile and a half track, especially longest race in the season, and would definitely help them in terms of sponsorship and whatnot. And I'm actually gonna give a super wild card pick here, and I'm gonna go with none other than that Jim Johnson guy from El Cajon, California. So gonna go his third race of the year in the 84 car, and former winner, of course, in the Coca-Cola 600 many times. So let's see. I want to see what he can do in a real racetrack here. Now he's um, been taken out, of course, in the uh, Daytona 500, wrecked out before the end, then got taken out pretty early on in Coda. Let's see if he can come here to Charlotte and make something out of it. So let's see, see what he can do. His third year or third race of the year, and of course running in a Legacy Motor Club car, which has not been that great. But let's see what the legend himself can do behind the wheel of one of these cars.
Yeah, the super wild card pick one Jim Johnson. Uh, I'm curious to see what they bring to the table with 3 cars this weekend. Uh, Josh brought it up with how he basically was wrecked on the first lap at Coda, didn't really race. You have this 500 became a cluster by the end of it. So, of course, he was going to get involved in the wreck. Um, Let's see what he I don't know how many times he's won the 600, but he's won it a lot. It would be interesting to see if he can get a top 20 finish out of this deal. He'll be better than what his regular drivers have been doing on a regular basis. So if they could pull a top 20 or 25, stay on the lead lap, it'll be a good day, I would think, for the 84 team at Charlotte. Okay, so the last thing we are going to go over is, of course, the 107th running of the Indianapolis 500. We went through the qualifying, we talked about practice speeds, but now is the time to make our picks. And so I guess since Josh, you went with a super wild card pick, um, and since it's the greatest day in motorsports, the triple header, I'm gonna say we could go pick a winner, a wild card, or we can pick two winners, whatever, and you can have a dark horse or wild card pick as well, and it's open to the entire field, really. Um, I would say though that if I mean, I can't. I mean, you could. There's good cars that are in the back of the field, towards the back of the field. There's cars that haven't been up there all year. So I feel like we can make three choices. I feel like two cars that we think could win, and a car that could be a surprise. So Josh, you can start us off with the Indianapolis 500 picks.
Right. Uh, I've already given like one of my picks here, and I gave it earlier in the show, and I'll restate that one. My B pick. I'll give you my B pick first because we already said it, but I think um I think that Santino Ferrucci has a really good shot to win this race, so I'm gonna go with him as my B winner, and I guess my A pick winner here. I will go with. Let me um Yeah, I'm gonna go with just go chalk here. Go with Alex Palou, sweeping the month of May, winning the GMR Grand Prix, qualifying pole day, and then going out here and winning the Indianapolis 500 from the pole. So that's who I'll go with as my uh, pick there. Then my wild card pick. Uh, It's gonna be interesting, but uh, I will go with Connor Daly, the uh, Indianapolis native. Of course, uh, didn't have the speed to break into the top 12. Got really close, but wasn't able to do it. I go with him. Led a couple of years ago, back in 2021. Crowd was on their feet. If he wins, it'll be a big party.
I don't think Connor Daly would be able to drive at Detroit the next week if he won the Indianapolis 500 because it would be so hungover. Um, but that would be one of the greatest things that has happened at the Speedway in a long time. That's a really good pick because ECR makes puts a lot of their energy in this race for many obvious reasons. Connor, with all the connections he has to this track, uh, it all kind of falls together. That it'll be something to see. He's been fast there in recent years too, so um, I think it would be awesome. Always root for Connor Daly um, in general. I made this pick on the Aaron Harper AHGP podcast earlier in the day. Go and tune into that wherever you get podcasts. The AHGP podcast. We previewed the Indianapolis 500 there. I said Pato Award was my A pick to win the Indianapolis 500. He finished second in this race last year. Um, he's due to win a big one. He's essentially the most popular driver in the series. He has a whole country behind him, and he wins Indianapolis. I mean, don't look now; it could become pretty ugly for the rest of the field. That's how good he is. My B pick, not really a B pick, because of how great he is, I pick Scott Dixon. I mean, when the guy who's won basically, there's only one guy that's won more races than you. Uh, he's been chasing that second win for years. In 2020, he lost it late to Sato. Last year, he sped on pit road when he had the race won. I think 21 or not, whatever, one of them years, he went and flipped over uh, what's his face's car. Uh, I forget what the hell that guy's name was. Tony Stewart was involved with that team, and guy washed up out of the groove, came back into the groove, and Scott Dixon flew over the back end of it, flipped over, driving a Camping World car. I think it might have been 17. Feels like 17 when he qualified on pole. When then all the Hondas started blowing up with Fred Alonso and stuff, which Takuma Sato won. But Scott Dixon, essentially, this is the last thing he needs. I think he wants a 7 championship for sure. Ganassi's never going to tell him to quit, but he gets a second Indy 500. I mean, what does it matter at that point, for Dixon to hold on? Um, I think that's what it would be. The pick right there for me. So Patricio Award, uh, A. Scott Dixon, B. And then the wild card. You picked a good one. Uh, you see, that's kind of a reach. You know what? I'll do it. I'm kicking in personal bias twice. Captain America. I'm gonna pick Ryan Hunter-Reay in the stealth black number 23 car for Brian Reinbold, which will now probably have all of the sponsorship or some of the sponsors that were on the 24 on their car now. Captain America because he's former winner. Brian Reinbold does a great job at Indianapolis to only show up once a year, et cetera, et cetera. I think he wants to show that he belongs back out on the grid or should be working full time somewhere, um, whether it's Indy cars or sports cars. Those are our picks. Um, I guess in terms of the rookie of the year, there's four rookies in this race: Peterson, Canapino, Enerson, and Stingray Robb. If it was based on like track position to start the race, Peterson would be the odds-on favorite. I think Agustin Canapino will get the best finish out of all the rookies and win rookie of the race, basically driving an Argentinian flag around the speedway. So Agustin Canapino is my pick for rookie of the race. Um, Josh, do you concur, or are you going to go since you already picked root beer float head? Maybe you double down with Benjamin Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting pick there going if I went with Peterson. But, well, yeah, it would be an interesting pick there because still have, bunch of rookies in this field. Um, and, I mean, we could talk about them. I mean, I think it's going to be hard for somebody like Stingray Robb to, be rookie of the year. They just didn't really show a ton of speed. R.C. Anderson is also kind of, somebody who doesn't really have a whole lot of speed either. So yeah, I think I'll go with Ben Peterson there because I mean they've just shown a lot of pace throughout um, the month of May, and I think they have a good uh, you know plan to be up front there, and I think when you start up front, you have a good chance of being in contention, but also just in general, having a better chance to have a good finish. But I mean, for some of the guys in the back, like you said, with Augustin Canapino, of course, he comes up and makes it up and becomes the best finishing rookie or the best performing rookie, then that'd be really impressive considering how far back they are in the field. So yeah, I'll go with Ben Peterson there.
So Josh is doubling down with AJ Foyt. Must be 1965 again, because AJ Foyt has people looking at his team like they're legit, and the speed shows they are, uh, at least for 1 lap pace and 4 lap pace. Benjamin Peterson's never run 500 miles. He really has basically been the worst driver on the grid, so it's hard to fathom him pulling it out of his ass. But stranger things have happened at Indianapolis. Agustin Canapino never ran on an oval uh, prior to this year. Couldn't speak English. Prior, basically, learned English. Has run on ovals, likes ovals. The Juncos team, they just need to get through carb day clean, and I think they'll be an interesting team to watch at at Indianapolis this coming weekend. So yeah, let's go to the sim segment. Josh, let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and some of the exploits you had this past weekend.
Yeah, of course. Talked about North Wilkesboro at the top of the show, and that's what I basically did this weekend on iRacing. Yeah, I never ran this track before, and ran it with the NASCAR Truck Series that was on, following the real schedule. So I'm been trying to get back into short track racing, I guess, but yeah, it's one of the reasons why I never really do it is because there's just so many yellows, and you just constantly get caught up in other people's mess and stuff, and um, that happened a lot running North Wilkesboro this past weekend. Ran like 4 races, so um, each one of them I got hit a couple of times, and they're none of them were like where they just flat out ran me over or anything like that or anything, but it was always like somebody getting loose and hooking me from the inside, or somebody getting loose on the outside and I'm in the inside, and then they come down into me and clean me out. So yeah, that was definitely the experience there. There was one where somebody just like got loose on the front stretch. I passed them going into turn one, and then they kind of just kept a straight line and then got me in the left side and spun me out and everything. So yeah, it was part of it, but it was interesting. The first one that I did uh this past weekend actually was running. I think yeah, Shane Huffman was in that one, who he's a short track driver, but most famously known as one of the original drivers of the number 88 car back in 2006 and 2007. I think was in that ride before Brad Keselowski took over. And he was talking about the surface there, and he was giving his insight, and he said that they probably should have repaved it before going, with the Cup Series and with everybody else. So, interesting perspective, with the, you know, someone who's does short track racing quite regularly, racing on iRacing there. Um, uh, Most of them, yeah, finished in top 10. Couple of them actually maxed out my incident points on iRacing, and had to take a drive-through penalty, which is the penalty once you get past 17x incidents. So had to do that, but managed to stay on lead lap and everything. So was able to stay on lead lap and still get through it. And finish in top 10, but it's just a lot of yellows and stuff. The last one actually was in a, I guess somebody from Stuart Friesen's pit crew or team was racing, and so I got to race against somebody from that organization, so that was pretty interesting there. But the last one, I think everybody was getting ready to watch the All-Star race, so I think it's a little bit cleaner there, but still a couple times where I got spun out there. So it is what it is, but at the end of the day, it's short track racing. It's probably just why I don't do it a lot. Is because the propensity for somebody to and tendency to run somebody over or just get caught up in another deal and get run over from behind. That's why I don't do it that often. I mean, I do super speedway racing a lot with Daytona and Talladega, but I feel like you have room to be able to get around people the bigger tracks, but just the smaller tracks, just constant, um, you know, action and stuff that can happen where you're run over or something like that. So I don't know. It's just never really been my style, I guess. But wanted to try to do North Wilkesboro because it's a historic track, of course, and I you know, do like watching the racing of that track. Wanting to try that, and yeah, definitely had good pace throughout the races there that I did. But just and actually led a little bit staying out on pit stops, but just wasn't able really to you know get up close to really be a good threat for the win. But it was good to be able to try it. So yeah, that's what I did on iRacing this past week. Of course, no Indy 500, but they do have the Coke 600 on there, so that's on the table if I decide to do it. I guess be interesting. 400 laps, and I don't think iRacing does stages, so that should be a little bit of a different wrinkle there. We'll see if I decide to do it. Probably have to do it on Saturday or something. I don't even know what times are available on there, so I have to look at that. But definitely a possibility. Maybe Saturday, because definitely not doing it on Sunday, because that'll be when the real racing is, and don't really want to be caught uh, you know, in the middle of Indy 500 and then be like, oh, I need to go run Charlotte or something like that, or during the middle of the Coca Cola 600. I want to be able to pay attention to that at least and watch all that stuff. So we'll see. But so probably Saturday or something if I decide to, and I'll definitely let y'all know. Of course, uh, I think there is another organization running their own Indy 500 for cash, so that's also a possibility as well. But it won't be broadcast, and I think there's still the stupid rules about how you can't stream the Indy 500 if you choose to race Indianapolis Motor Speedway privately. For whatever reason, that's kind of stupid in my opinion, but whatever. So we'll see. We'll see if I do that one. I don't know yet. Not sure what my weekend plans are because I know it's obviously Memorial Day weekend and everything. Maybe want to get together with some friends or something like that. So that's also a possibility as well. There. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'll definitely try to stream something again this weekend. Of course, can go look at the past streams that I did this weekend with North Wilkesboro and any other things. Of course, see last year's Indy 500 win on there. Of course, Twitch TV/ usailor2. Go on there, watch all my videos on there when I do decide to stream, and we'll definitely have something on there for people to watch and people to see how my driving style is. Definitely try to be calculated and cool and everything. Definitely get aggressive sometimes when I need to, but I definitely try to preserve myself for the end to give myself a chance to be able to go out there and win. So that's definitely my approach there. But of course, it's kind of interesting. With the short track racing there, uh, looks looks a lot like Florida drivers, I guess, or maybe Florida drivers imitating iRacing people. I don't know. You pick your poison there, but that's how it is sometimes. But not not on other tracks, but just on short tracks and other places as well. So yeah, go in there and watch my streams, Twitch TV/user2, and then Twitter, JP Huffine, and that's where I have all my opinions and everything, and of course post the streams links there, and of course links to the show there as well, and of course our YouTube page, Gripster Podcast, and you can see our stuff there. We got all our videos uploaded and everything, so go up there and watch our videos or listen, and with the video in the background, go in there, subscribe to our page, like our videos, comment, engage with the platform. So that's where we have our stuff there on Group Share Podcasts on YouTube. So yeah, of course, as always, glad to be able to deal with you, Phil. Glad to be able to talk about the greatest day in racing coming up this weekend, and of course, being able to wake up, have a cup of coffee in Monaco, have lunch in Indianapolis, and then go have some dinner in Charlotte. Yeah, that would be really interesting if somebody's able to do it, and we'd have to have uh, huge advances in technology to be literally able to do that. So I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it would be funny. So of course, we'll hopefully have a good set of races this weekend.
That's the hope. I mean, I hope that it is for Indy for sure, and that weather holds off for both Indy and Charlotte. Um, but yeah, thanks as always, Josh. Be my sidekick, my friend, my right hand man here on this show. Follow his Twitch streams and his racing because he's really good at it and very methodical about it. Very calculating. So he tries to drive it the smart way. Unfortunately, a lot of these people on iRacing drive like Annabeth Barnes Crumb and her stupid husband Jake. Um, is probably their white trash. But either way, are just idiots. But you can't fix stupid. Ron White once famously said that. For me, you can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. Find me Philip G. Matthew 28 on Instagram. You can find us at Gripstrip Pod on Twitter as well. Find the Gripstrip Podcast on Podbean. That's our home home site, whatever, or home base, or hosting site. There you go. And then philipgmatthew.com. You can find the show. Basically, anywhere you can get a podcast, you can find the Gripster podcast. I'll be hopefully getting these episodes out nice and quick because I'm going to have some downtime because I'm going to be home this week more than I have been in a while. For that, for Josh, I'm Phil. We'll be back next week for episode 171 um, for the recap of the greatest day in motorsports and anything else that goes on in the world of motorsports and sports. We'll talk about it here on the Gripster podcast. So take care. Thanks to the men and women, uh, who made that ultimate sacrifice for us to give us our freedoms, and also to those who do serve in all the branches of the armed forces and in in first responders and all to go and keep us safe. So for that, take care, God bless, and goodbye.